David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. Today I have another pen for you from Montblanc's Great Character series. I feel Montblanc has done a great job with this series, capturing the essence of each subject in a way that appeals to fountain pen users, as well as fans of the great characters themselves. Previously on my channel, I've reviewed the Alfred Hitchcock, James Dean, and Marilyn Monroe models. What I have for you today is the Walt Disney. What I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of the Montblanc Walt Disney, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. Thanks go out to Applebaum for the loan of this pen for review. The pen arrives in this Disney-themed box. Inside, we have a couple of things. First of all, with all of the great characters lineup, included is a very nice manual, which serves as both a use and care guide, as well as providing a bit of information about the subject, as well as the symbolism incorporated into this pen. Then we have the box. I actually attempted to research this symbol here on the lid and came up with a blank. I'm uncertain what this symbol has to do with Walt Disney or Disney in general. If you happen to know, then by all means leave a comment in the notes below. The box opens up and inside we have the pen. This is the Montblanc Walt Disney. Now there are two different versions of this pen. This model here is the special edition. There is also a limited edition model which retails for around $3,500. Now this model is significantly less expensive than that, but we'll talk price later on in this review. The trim on this pen is platinum coated, and the cap and barrel are made with Montblanc's precious resin. The resin has more of a matte finish to it as opposed to the polished finish that you find on their Meisterstück line. There is a lot of symbolism on this pen, so let's get started by taking a look at the cap. On the tip of the cap is the smallest Montblanc snow cap logo that I've seen on one of their pens. It's only 3 millimeters in diameter. The design on the cap actually represents one of the monorails at the Disney parks. The monorail at Disneyland in California actually opened in 1959 and was the very first operating monorail in the Western Hemisphere. On top of the monorail in negative space is one of the many hidden Mickeys on this pen. On the opposite side of the cap, just above the clip, the iconic signature of Walt Disney is engraved. This is a very high quality engraving. The same goes for the lines which make up the monorail design. I really like how the engraved aspects have a rougher texture to really help the design stand out. Then we have the clip. The clip is actually meant to invoke the image of a smokestack on a steamboat. This is a reference to the very first Mickey Mouse cartoon, Steamboat Willie. It's always interesting to see where Montblanc places the serial number on their special edition pens. In this particular case, it's very small and on the base of the clip. The matte resin portion of the cap has horizontal lines, or I guess they could be vertical, depending on how you actually are holding the pen. In addition to the lines, there are 8 hidden Mickeys of varying size. There isn't a traditional cap band, but there's a somewhat shortened band which angles down steeply to a slight gap between the cap and barrel, where you can see this band of yellow before the design angles back up to the remainder of the barrel, which actually contains 8 additional hidden Mickeys, as well as a 9th not-so-hidden Mickey peering out of a ship's porthole, again reference to Steamboat Willie. There is a metal piece toward the end of the barrel, then a gap filled in red before you reach the piston knob, which comes to a rounded point. Now, there's a couple things going on here with the piston knob. Toward the very end, it's engraved with Montblanc and Germany. Then on the barrel side of the knob, it is engraved with some GPS coordinates. These coordinates are the location of Walt Disney's first film studio in North Hollywood. Walt and his brother Roy began making films in their uncle's garage at this location back in 1923. Now, as you can see, the house and garage are no longer here. The garage is actually preserved and was moved to a ranch in Garden Grove, which is about 4 miles south of the Disneyland Park in Anaheim. Now, I grew up in San Diego and we were only 90 minutes from Disneyland, so we would take frequent family trips to the park. Back then it was kind of a common destination for like youth groups or clubs or school trips and things like that. So growing up, there were many trips to the park. Here I am, very young, with a rather odd-looking Mickey. Now, this was actually a Mickey Mouse at the park. This wasn't like some cut-rate Mickey at a mall or something like that. The quality control back in the 70s isn't necessarily what it is today. I'm actually old enough to remember when admissions to the park didn't actually give you access to ride all of the attractions. You had to purchase these ticket books and then use the tickets for the rides. Once you were out of tickets, you were either done with the rides or you had to go purchase more. So you actually had to pick and choose and then agree on what rides you were going to ride with the folks you were with. There was A, B, C, D, and E tickets. The A tickets were for pretty tame attractions like the carousel, and then the E tickets were for the more exciting rides like the Matterhorn roller coaster. You don't hear it that often anymore, but if you ever hear the saying that was an E-ticket ride in relation to something really exciting, that's where the term originated. Okay, back to this pen. I mentioned these color rings. There is the yellow, red, and then there's the black of the barrel. These are all major colors used to draw, you guessed it, Mickey Mouse. The cap unscrews. The cap is actually single threaded, so if you insert the barrel with the protruding Mickey aligned with the clip, once the pen is capped, it will be aligned, which is a nice feature. Once you remove the cap, you are presented with a 14-karat rhodium-coated gold nib, stamped with another likeness of Mickey. This pen is available with a wide variety of nib choices. There is extra fine, fine, medium, broad, double broad, oblique medium, oblique broad, and oblique double broad. And here's a look at the plastic feet. The section is platinum coated metal and begins with an angled flare. While I typically am not a huge fan of metal sections, this one isn't bad, mainly because it's rather thick and only very slightly angled. There is less than a millimeter rise from beginning to end. Since it's almost flat, I really don't find my grip slipping down the section. The section actually transitions into the threads and the aforementioned yellow band and an angled step up to the barrel. While I do find the metal threads a little sharp while I'm holding the pen, the step up actually prevents my grip from resting on those threads, so I don't find the sharpness to be an issue. The pen does have a little bit of heft to it. There is a lot of metal in here, but I don't find it to be overly heavy, and it's very comfortable in my hand even for longer writing sessions. The cap does not post, which is fine. This cap is rather heavy, and it would really throw off the balance of this pen, and I find it plenty long enough to use comfortably unposted. The Montblanc Walt Disney Special Edition retails at Applebaum for right around $875, which is along the lines of many of the other great character pens. There is a lot to like about this pen. I like the overall look and design. I enjoyed the matte black resin, and I think I like most is that there are at least 19 Mickeys on this pen, yet it doesn't look cartoonish or overdone. They are very subtle and truly hidden. You have to really look at it closely in order to find them. They're not bold or in your face. So while there are Mickeys all over this pen, it's something that still looks rather professional. Thanks again go out to Applebaum for providing this pen on loan for review. I will put a link in the notes below where you can check it out on their site. Now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons, and a writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Montblanc Walt Disney. Here it is with a Sailor King of Pen, that is the Royal Tangerine. Then here it is with a Pelican M805. And then here it is with a Pilot Vanishing Point. This is the Raiden Water Surface. Then in regard to some Montblanc pens, this is what it looks like next to a Montblanc 146. Here it is next to the Alfred Hitchcock. And then finally, a pen that you might see reviewed in just a little bit on this channel, which is a Signature M. In regard to some uncapped comparisons, This is what it looks like with the Alfred Hitchcock and a 146 and the Pelican M805. Here we go with the writing sample for the Montblanc Walt Disney. This is a fine 14 karat gold nib, and the ink that I'm using today is one that I've been using a lot lately, which is Diamine Communication Breakdown. This is what the ink looks like. It's a nice reddish brown that has kind of some green sheen to it. It is a limited edition ink put out by Diamine that kind of is in a rock and roll themed lineup that is available in Germany, but it's still rather easy to get a hold of. And this is what it looks like compared to Diamine Red Dragon, as well as another one of my favorite reds recently, which is the Leonardo Red Passion. This is what the bottles look like. It's a nice 80 milliliter bottle, and I've always liked these Diamine bottles here. And so now let's take a look at the rest of the writing sample. As with all of Montblanc's nibs, this 14 karat gold fine nib is very nice. It's fairly smooth. You can get a bit of line variation out of here. I do say that I like both Montblanc's medium as well as fine nibs. I find that their fine nibs are not overly scratchy and don't really bite into the page. In regard to reverse writing, it does a good job of putting down an extra fine line. In regard to some fast writing, the feed has no issues at all. So there you have the Montblanc Walt Disney. As I said before, I think this pen has a lot going for it. If you are a fan of Walt Disney or Mickey Mouse or Disneyland, there's a lot of references in here for you, but then it's also professional enough and the references are subtle enough to where you could have this pen in a professional environment as well. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.